Coming up on College Press Box,
we will discuss college football, Big 12 standings, and the softball alumni game.
Also, we'll recap on volleyball, soccer, and some cross country this past week.
All this and more on College Press Box.
Hello and welcome to this edition of College Press Box. I am your host, Julian Owens, and with me in the studio tonight is first-timer Thomas Brigham. Thomas, before we get started tonight, I just have a couple of questions. First off, how was your weekend and what did you do for Halloween this past week?
Well, for Halloween, I went to the grand opening of Raising Cane's here in Austin. Of course, had some candy, and it was a great sports weekend all around.
All right. Well, we're going to get right into it. Big talk with the Texas and Kansas game this past Saturday. What did you think about this game overall?
I mean, it was a slow start by the offense, but I was very impressed with what Malcolm Brown did on the ground. And, of course, our defense continues to improve.
All right. Yeah.
The Longhorns and the Jayhawks entered the game with different expectations for the rest of the season. But big plays by Malcolm Brown and Chris Whaley led the charge for the Horns as they remained undefeated in conference play. Let's head out to DKR for the highlights. Take on Kansas Jayhawks, looking for the 5th straight win in the conference. Texas running out of the tunnel. Texas is ready to play. 37, Texas ball at the Kansas 37. Case McCoy hits Jackson Shipley for a 31-yard pass. We're going to have a Quentin Jammer and Roy Williams were honored at the game for being inducted in the Hall of Fame.
Third quarter.
Cedric Reed sacks Jake Heaps, Heaps fumbles, and Chris Whaley picks up the fumble and gets 40 yards for the score. Texas up 21-6. McCoy hits Marcus Johnson for a 31-yard strike to the KU 19. Counting the drive for Texas sets up Malcolm Brown touchdown. Fourth quarter, McCoy
Malcolm Brown would get in for his third touchdown. He would get 4 for the night, and he would go in and help to win the game for Texas. As you see, he's running through his 4th scoring touchdown of the game, and they would win 35-13 for Texas.
Julian Owens was at the game on Saturday to talk about the players, about how important the game was, and of course the rest of the season.
With Chris Whaley and Malcolm Brown being the momentum changers, Texas was able to seal the win 35-13.
The Ced Reed, Chris Whaley sack touchdown so important because we were challenging the guys. Somebody had to step it up and make a difference in the game and change their momentum in the second half, and then after that it really wasn't a game.
Yeah, I mean, he's just making plays, and he's doing what he's supposed to do, and actually extra. We have playing with a lot more energy, and people are a lot more focused.
Mal has done a great job of handling adversity and getting better and saying I got to stay healthy, and that's what he's doing now. So he's doing a great job of staying healthy, being healthy, and pushing forward. He's doing a great job of when he gets in the game, doing producing, and that's a big key for him.
As Malcolm Brown records his career high of 4 rushing touchdowns and Chris Whaley gets his 2nd defensive touchdown this season, Longhorns seems as if they can win the Big 12 championship. However, Coach Mack Brown and the players themselves believe that they need some more work to do before they can make it to the championship.
I think this bunch knows who we are and they know what we have in front of us, and I think we have as good a chance as anybody to win the next 4 games. We just got to do it one game at a time.
And so we realize, I mean, there's going to be down times, but through adversity, you got to keep fighting.
As far as our odds, success is getting a BCS bowl, winning a Big 12 championship, and winning a BCS bowl. So, we're headed to success. We're doing a great job right now, and we're climbing that ladder and getting better each and every week.
That's the key thing, and we're actually making sure that we improve each week. Not being satisfied with what we did this week. We have to keep getting better each week. We have to keep doing it. That's the challenge. You have to keep doing it day in and day out.
Julian Owens, College Press Box.
All right, and also we have in the studio for us is Reese Miller to talk about some more of the Texas and Kansas game. Reese, how are you doing tonight?
How's it going, guys? Thanks for having me on tonight.
All right, well, first, let's talk about the Kansas game. How did you feel about the game overall, and what were the biggest points for you for this game in this win?
Well, for Texas, it's a great job getting a much-needed win at home against an undermanned Kansas team that has now lost 26 consecutive games in the Big 12. Although the defense, you've got to be a little bit concerned. It was a bend but not break type of day. They did allow the 13 points. And guys, let's remember it was 14-6 with Kansas having the ball with just over 9 minutes to go in the third quarter. And of course, Cedric Reed, of course, had the huge sack strip. Chris Whaley returns to the end zone. We know the rest. And meanwhile, on the offensive side, it's the first time all season Malcolm Brown has led the Texas Longhorns in carries with 22 more than Jonathan Gray. We'll have to see how that plays out going forward, although he had a huge 4 touchdowns, a great job on the ground. I believe Texas has really found their identity with this ground and pound dual threat back between Gray and Malcolm Brown. But meanwhile, you got to talk about Case McCoy a little bit. Since the first half of the Oklahoma game, he's only thrown 2 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, 2 in the last 2 games. He struggled a little bit again. His yards per attempt were way down. Third down conversions, he's actually leading the Big 12 in QBR, but we're going to need a lot more big plays and a little bit more consistency from Case McCoy coming into this next week. It'll also be interesting to see. We got to see a little bit more of Tyrone Swoops. It'll be interesting to see going forward how they continue to use him. He only got a couple of plays, looked a little iffy on the throwing aspect, but had a nice big run for Texas. But overall, it's a great win in conference to keep moving and going forward toward what they hope to be as a Big 12 championship.
All right, then. Well, thank you, Reese. We'll see you on later on for the show tonight. When we come back, we'll take a look at the volleyball team and how they did this weekend, and also who decided to come back onto the diamond for the softball alumni game. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to College Press Box. The Texas volleyball team faced the TCU Horned Frogs in a haunted Halloween matchup at Gregory Gym last Thursday. TCU earned a set victory for the first time in the series history on Thursday, but the composed and confident defending national champs were not spooked and extended their double-digit win streak with a 3-1 victory on Thursday. Chloe Collins sets up Haley Eckerman for the kill. Chloe Collins to Bailey Webster for another big kill. Collins to McCage, who tools the block. Kat Bell and Chiaka Agbuga with the double block.
Haley Eckerman will get him a kill. And they'll win the first set. And then the second set.
Sundstrom to Maddie Burleson for the TCU kill. Haley Eckerman is denied by the TCU triple block. Chloe Collins and McCage for the kill. Eckerman sneaks it over. Hannah Allison to Kat Bell for the kill.
Now it's Hannah Allison. And now for the fourth set.
The fourth set ended with a long rally. TCU digs up Bailey Webster kill, but she and Molly McCage turn right around and block them. Texas takes the set 25-23 in the match 4-1.
The number 1 Texas volleyball team took on the number 25 Oklahoma Sooners in Norman, Oklahoma this past Saturday and won the match 3-1. Junior All-American Haley Eckerman recorded a match high of 19 kills and Hannah Allison with a season high of 52 assists. After the first set, barely leading 12-11, Texas would break away with an 11-2 run and win the first set 25-15. And then the second set, again, both teams went blow for blow before Texas broke away and won again with Bailey Webster's kill 25-17, leading the match 2-0. Texas would lose the third set with a Haley Eckerman kill error and a kill from Kayla Rodriguez, which would be 27-25. But Texas will come back and win the fourth set and the match after defeating Oklahoma 25-21. Texas will face Kansas this Wednesday. In the final fall game of the season, we looked at former softball player and Texas ex Blair Luna after the alumni game.
It was a really fun experience. It's kind of weird, being on the other side, but it was cool to see the alumni and all the girls and definitely stepped up a lot, and I think it's good for her. Definitely, we were definitely expecting a W, but we had fun. It was great to see everyone, and it was just more to have fun and just to be reunited and just play softball, which is something that we all love to do.
The Longhorn track and field team headed to Waco to compete in the 2013 Big 12 Cross Country Championship on Saturday. Marielle Hall was the star of the show, becoming the first Longhorn to win the Big 12 Cross Country individual title with her victory at the 6,000-meter race. She is the only woman to hold multiple top 10 finishes after a personal best 19-minute, 38.3-second race. Her accomplishments led the women's cross-country team to a fourth-place finish, and the men's cross-country team, led by fourth-place finisher Ryan Donner and sixth-place finisher Craig Lutz, finished third in the team standings.
The Texas soccer team faced the Red Raiders this last Friday and lost the game 0-1. The Red Raiders got on the board early with a third-minute goal from Janine Becky. From then on, Texas defense played a very solid game, with Abby Smith made a pair of saves in the 16th and 20th minutes of the game, recording a season high of 7 saves in this past game. The Longhorns got off 4 half shots in the first half, but none of them succeeded to get into the goal. Texas came out aggressive in the second half, tallying 4 corner shots, with Gabby Zarnagar accounting for the final kick of the game, but it went too high over the goal. Texas is now the 3rd seed in the Big 12 tournament and will play Oklahoma State this Wednesday. Coming up on College Breakfast, we'll have Reese Miller again in the studio to talk some Big 12 games this past weekend and preview of the Texas and West Virginia games. Stay tuned. Thank you and welcome back with us. And now we'll have Reese Miller again coming in back for the studio, and now he'll talk about some Big 12 and Texas and West Virginia games. Now, first, Reese, we're going to go to the Oklahoma State and Texas game this past Saturday. Oklahoma State took a big win in this one for 52-34. What do you think about this game, and what did you think of the biggest thing that came and helped Oklahoma State aid in this win?
Right, well, it's a huge game for both teams. I mean, Texas Tech was a little bit overrated when they got all the way up to number 10 in the BCS standings. They now no longer control their own destiny. They're going to need a little bit of help trying to make it in the BCS and trying to win the Big 12 title. Meanwhile, Oklahoma State, they've only had the one slip up at West Virginia. Besides that, this team looks like a team that could contend for maybe a title, which they were projected to early on in the season. It has to be Desmond Rowland, though, as a key to victory. He had 3 touchdowns, and Clint Shelf, who was benched early in the year for J.W. Walsh, he is now their starter, and he seems to be doing a pretty nice job in that role. He had 2 throwing touchdowns and 2 on the ground as well. Meanwhile, Davis Webb, the freshman quarterback thing, is starting to bite Cliff Kingsbury and his Red Raiders just a little bit easy. Threw a couple interceptions and had another turnover with a fumble. But meanwhile, OSU, I think this is a team you've got to look forward. They still play the top 3 in the Big 12 standings against Oklahoma, against Baylor, and of course at Texas in the upcoming weeks.
All right. Now, Thomas, what did you think about this game? Who you thought was the bigger improvement in this game, Oklahoma State or Texas Tech?
Well, definitely Oklahoma State, because Texas Tech has lost 2 straight games, and they were just pumped up by a lot of critics. The last couple of weeks, like we said, they made it to the top 10 in the BCS, and Oklahoma State is always a dangerous team, whether, it's been with the quarterbacks that they've had in the past couple years, or even now they have a quarterback, but he's not a very good quarterback. Mike Gundy is a great coach, and so you got to expect them to be there at the end fighting for a Big 12 championship.
All right. Now, Reese, we're going to go back to you. We're going to talk about the West Virginia and TCU game. TCU took on West Virginia but lost 27-30. Reese, coming from being the top 25 team in the nation and basically not being unranked and losing to West Virginia this past Saturday, what do you think was the bigger win or the bigger loss to, TCU or West Virginia?
Right, well, TCU a lot of people pick this team to contend and possibly win the Big 12. They might be in danger of missing a bowl game for the first time since 2006 under head coach Gary Patterson. It's got to be disappointing. I think the key for TCU is they've had no offense in a big-time offensive conference. And meanwhile, you look at West Virginia, and it's all about Charles Sims. This guy had his best day of the season with over 150 rush yards and a touchdown. And Clint Trickett quietly has been putting together some pretty decent performances in the Big 12 after transferring from a junior college and then to West Virginia. And I think he's taken a nice job taking over this starting West Virginia role. They came back from 17 down, gave up a lead late, but got the job done in overtime. And this is a dangerous team to look out for.
All right, Thomas, what did you think about this game?
Well, West Virginia surprised us all throughout this season, and Charles Sims is a dangerous character. He has, he's a threat. I mean, he's scored so many touchdowns. Last week he had 2 in the comeback against TCU, and he's definitely going to be someone on defense coordinator or the Texas defense coordinator's radar as they do prepare for the key matchup in Morgantown this weekend.
All right, Reese, now we're going to go into the pregame preview of this next week's game of West Virginia and Texas game. Texas is basically coming in 5-0 Big 12 play. West Virginia is coming in. People does not really think of them as a good contender. But, Reese, what do you think about this team, and what do you think is the keys to victory for Texas as they face West Virginia the first time out there in West Virginia?
Right. Well, let's remember West Virginia upset Oklahoma State when they were number 12 in the nation playing in Morgantown. This is an interesting game because Texas has actually only played West Virginia twice in the history of the school. They're 2-0. This is actually the only team in the Big 12 Mag Brown has not played at their stadium, so that is something to watch. I think you have to watch the dual threat of Jonathan Gray and Malcolm Brown. They found their identity on the offensive side, but it's a little bit out of sync. Even last week we saw drives stall out as Case McCoy was sacked, or he had a couple of pretty costly interceptions on the KU side of the field. Meanwhile, West Virginia, they're looking to play the role of spoiler. They did it against Oklahoma State. They've got a couple of other contenders left on the schedule, and this is about making a bowl game for them. Already with 4 losses, if they lose 2 or 3 more, they're done for the year. And Texas, I think this is the ultimate trap game. You sort of overlook this team that only has a couple wins in the Big 12, and you look forward to Oklahoma State coming in here, Texas Tech, and of course, possibly the big matchup against Baylor later on in the season. But one of the key for Texas, I think, is making sure Clint Trickett and Charles Sims do not beat you. The defensive line has played outstanding the last several games, and if you want to stop the deep passes like we saw a little bit with Jake Heaps, and every quarterback we're going to see from here on out is quite a bit better than Jake Heaps, and I think the key to stopping the passing game is with that defensive line rush with Chris Whaley, Cedric Reed, Jackson Jeffcoat. I think it's going to be an interesting challenge, and I think this game comes down to the 4th quarter, but I think Texas is by far the more talented team. They're playing at a pretty high level right now, and I think they will get it done in Morgantown.
All right, Thomas. You already know that Texas is in the rule David Ash yet again for another week doing recurring concussions. As you've seen in the graphics, Big 12, they are 2-4, West Virginia, and Texas is on top right now. Do you think this is a trap game like Reese does believe that it's going to be for Texas, or do you think Texas will take care of business in Morgantown?
Well, Morgantown is always a very difficult place to play, and since it is in Morgantown, you got to expect West Virginia to come out with their best ball. And they've beaten Oklahoma State. They have played a lot better in recent weeks. But I do expect Texas to pull out this game because they do have such a great running duo of Malcolm Brown and Jonathan Gray. And you got to expect that defense to continue to improve. They're playing with a type of swagger that Greg Robinson has really brought to this team. They were, a disaster after that BYU game. And he's really turned around this team, and I expect that defense to continue to just put pressure on the quarterback and, of course, get some stops and critical moments in the 4th quarter.
All right. Well, Reese, before you head out, I have one last question for you. Bowl season is coming up just for now. Now, as you know, BCS standings came out yesterday. And what did you think about the BCS standings? Texas is 5-0. First time a team has ever been undefeated in conference play. They are not ranked. And you look at Baylor, who has most people suspect that haven't played anybody. They are ranked 6th in the nation. What do you think about this BCS standings, and where do you think this season will go for the Longhorns as the weeks to come?
Right. Well, it's sort of interesting that Texas isn't ranked. I mean, usually people hype the Longhorns up pretty good coming into the season ranked 15th. We haven't seen them in the rankings since the loss to BYU early on, I think this team absolutely deserves to be ranked. You've got teams like Wisconsin, Arizona State, and Notre Dame, all with 2 losses against some iffy competition and some pretty bad losses. I mean, Texas did have the big-time loss to Ole Miss and BYU, but I think they're definitely worthy of a BCS ranking. But for this team, it's not about that. It's about winning the conference and getting that automatic BCS bid. But I think when you look at the top, it's pretty much right where it should be. It's going to be an interesting dogfight all year long. And we have the possibility of seeing 5 undefeated teams. And it'll be interesting to see once you get later on and you start picking these bowls, who gets in and who gets left out. You might see a Baylor or an undefeated Ohio State team left out of a national championship game with an undefeated record. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
All right, Reese, you are right. It'll be very interesting to see that as the seasons come. Thank you so much for joining us in the studio, and I hope you have a great night.
Thanks, guys.
Stay tuned for Man on the Street and our predictions for this week's football game in Morgantown. Welcome back to College Press Box. Our own Alex Wilkins spoke to UT students about the World Series, Tyron swoops, and Texas basketball.
There have been some big moments in sports this past week. Baseball season is over, football is in full swing, and basketball is just getting started. I hit the 40 acres to see what students had to say about some hot topics in sports. Boston Red Sox won the World Series, and David Ortiz was awarded MVP. Who do you think deserved MVP and why?
I do think David Ortiz deserved MVP. I mean, he batted .688 through the whole World Series, which is a ridiculous batting average, and he really helped his team throughout the whole series to win every single game that they did.
David Ortiz, because he hit really well during the entire series, carried the team.
Definitely either Big Papi or John Lackey. Lackey's pitching definitely just shut down the Cardinals.
Mac Brown played Tyrone swoops in the TCU game, effectively burning his red shirt. What do y'all think about that decision?
I personally didn't agree with it, just because obviously he's going to be a great aspect for the team, and now it burnt his red shirt, like you said, so it's going to set him back in a sense that he can't play another full 4 years. So.
I think it's probably the right thing to do because we're not sure when David Ash is going to come back.
He just has to make the best of his eligibility here at Texas, and I think that that's completely possible. He has all the resources that he needs.
Basketball has started. Who's your favorite past Longhorn that went pro in the NBA?
Honestly, I don't know any except for Kevin Durant, so I'll go with Kevin Durant.
Probably Kevin Durant. He's really good. He's emerging as one of the NBA's big superstars.
I can't lie, Kevin Durant is up there.
Kevin Durant.
I was about to say Kevin Durant.
Probably Tristan Thompson. I know he's playing pretty well with the Cavaliers, so I like to root for him a lot.
And now we're going to discuss this week in Longhorn sports. Wednesday, soccer plays at Oklahoma State at 2 p.m. Thursday, men's and women's tennis plays at the ITA National Indoor Intercollegiate Championships. Friday, men's and women's swimming and diving plays at Virginia, West Virginia, and Penn State at 5 p.m. Also Friday, women's tennis hosts the Longhorn Invitational, soccer at Big 12 semifinal. Saturday, volleyball hosts Kansas on the Longhorn Network, and football plays at West Virginia at 6 p.m. Sunday, women's basketball hosts UTSA at 2 p.m., soccer at the Big 12 Championship Final at 3:30 p.m.
All right, Thomas, before we head out, what's your score predictions for this West Virginia and Texas game?
I got to say 28-17 Texas. I'm expecting a big performance from that running duo of Malcolm Brown and Jonathan Gray. And then our defense is going to be able to handle West Virginia's running back.
Well, I got to say, since this is the first time Texas will be in Morgantown, I think this is going to be a more closer game, 27-24. Again, running game is going to be the big impact for the team right now, and I don't see the defense putting up, letting them hold up more than 21 points. So we'll see how that goes for this Saturday. Well, that is all we have for tonight here on College Press Box. Thank you for joining us. Follow us on Twitter at College Press Box and watch us every Monday at 9:30. Also, you can check our sister show, who is basically here the biggest topic sports updates, and follow them on Twitter at 9:30 on Wednesday. Follow them on Twitter at College Xfire and watch them on Wednesdays at 9:30. Also look into the new sports show, The Hook, which is also Fridays at 8, and follow them on Twitter at _The Hook. From all of us in the Master Control, from Reese Miller who stepped in, from Thomas, I'm Julian Owens. Thank you all. Have a wonderful night.
Down south when I ride. Hook 'em more down south till I die. I hook 'em more